My name is Donna Matthews Gerald, and along with being the attending veterinarian here at the Massachusetts General Hospital, I had the honor of serving as the 61st president of the American College of Laboratory Animal Medicine. During my tenure, I had the opportunity to interview 4 true trailblazers in our college: Doctors William Watson, Gwen McCormick, Leslie Diaz, and Tracy Hanna all sat down with me to share their personal and professional journeys in becoming a veterinarian and becoming a member of our college. I'd like to thank the college's board of directors and the Equity and Inclusion Task Force for their support in bringing these interviews to you. So without further ado, let's meet our 4 Aclam trailblazers in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Enjoy.
When I went to veterinary school out of small town in South Georgia, Rochelle, Georgia, I had no clue as to what variety of fields that were and the careers that were available for veterinarians. First of all, I'd never seen a Black veterinarian at that time. In fact, I'd only seen one veterinarian, which was the individual that came around once a year to vaccinate our dogs for rabies. But I did have a very close friend who was a few years ahead of me in high school, but his brother and I were in the same class, Dr. James Ferguson. He was the first guy that I knew to even mention the word veterinary medicine as a career. I was accepted in veterinary school in 1961 at Tuskegee as a 19-year-old. In other words, still a teenager. This was during the time of the civil rights movement.
Yes.
So again, being a young college student, I did participate in the civil rights protests. Our junior year, our third year in veterinary school, we had mostly clinics, so I could devote time to going up to Montgomery, Alabama, and protesting in front of the state capitol. And of course, our instructors, now it was only about 3 or 4 of my class members that were involved. And our instructors were very concerned because at that time, it was not an easy thing. We were taught nonviolence, to be nonviolent in the protests, but nobody taught the other participants on the other side on the street how to be nonviolent. So it was always a critical thing, but our instructors were concerned about our safety. But we were young enough and eager and careless enough to not pay much attention to that. So every chance we got after we finished our clinical assignment, we would ride up to Montgomery, which was about a little less than 30 miles away, and join the protests. Other colleges, historical Black colleges, Alabama State, and all of those were involved too. Second semester of my senior year, fourth year, my pathology professor, Dr. Eugene Adams, offered a class, an elective in laboratory animal pathology. So that was my first encounter with the term laboratory animal. I entered the U.S. Army Veterinary Corps, and at that time you could make 3 choices. It didn't really matter. They send you where they want you anyway, but they made you think that you had some input. So my first choice was pathology. I was really intrigued with pathology. My second choice was this thing called laboratory animal medicine, which I knew very little about, but sounded exciting. I was assigned to Walter Reed Army Institute of Research. I was actually the first African-American assigned to the veterinary division of the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research. And I was assigned to the Department of Lab Animals. But I learned a lot about husbandry. I had to get in the rooms, work alongside the animal caretakers, and I cleaned cages and the whole work. So I got to learn operation from the ground up.
Tell me about your journey.
Okay, I'm originally from North Carolina. I grew up on a farm in a very remote rural community in North Carolina. And there was only one veterinarian in a 3-county area of Warren, Vance, and Franklin County. And I never saw a veterinarian down with the vet school. I heard of them. The hunters in my community would take their prized dogs to get their rabies shot before hunting season. And that's all I knew. I took 4-H club, animal science courses in 4-H club. And I remember once speaking to the ag agent and told him when I was in high school that I wanted to be a veterinarian after completing those courses. And he says, this was a Black male. He says, Gwen, no farmer wants a woman touching their animals, messing with their animals. I got scholarship to go to UNCG, and I majored in biology. And so I was thinking about doing something straight biology if I couldn't be a veterinarian. But then in my junior year, there was a job fair on campus, and I went, and nothing that they had with the biology position as working in a lab or something like that, it did not interest me at all. And so I went to my advisor and said, I want to be a veterinarian. So I looked at Auburn and Georgia. When I went to Auburn for my interview, took this Trailway bus from Greensboro
Yes.
down to Auburn. I got to my interview, and they asked if I had any questions because they didn't have any for me. So that was a cue. They didn't.
They had no questions for the interview
No.
after you had traveled all the way from North Carolina to.
So that was my cue. They didn't want me there.
Wow. Were you the first African-American woman to be?
No, when I interviewed, and
Yeah.
I saw the documents and everything, there were 3 Black males, students, and there was 1 Black professor. However, when those male students graduated before I got there, and the professor left. So when I got there, the only other Black person I saw was the janitor.
Okay.
But it wasn't until I went to undergrad at UNCG in Greensboro. I was walking down the street the first week I was there, and a carload of white boys drove by and called me the N-word. That was the first time I was exposed to that. But I said, they're too late because I know who I am.
Already got there.
With my father being a very spiritual man and my mother being loving and taking care of me, I knew I was here for a purpose. And they may not know me, but I knew who I was. So they were just late. They trying to make me think I was less than I am. It won't work.
Too late, I think you said. Too late.
Too late. Because I was on a military scholarship, I did externships with the military each summer.
Yeah.
And so I met, one summer, I took a course up at Walter Reed, and that's where I met Nate Jackson and Jerome Goldsboro.
Yes.
Barry. And so they became sort of like my mentors after I got out, after I finished. And they said, you should consider lab animal medicine. It is a good area. And you've had some basis with Darryl Clark. Consider that. Consider doing, a postdoc, a residency in lab animal. And it's a good field to go into.
Yeah.
And so I stopped and said, so many of my family members have benefited from biomedical research,
Yes.
health conditions, surgeries, and things like that. I said, this would be a way for me to give back.
I come from a little old country town called Bear Creek, North Carolina. I am nowhere near understanding what's going on in the real world other than the animals I see in the farms in my environment. And so I am just eating all this up, but not but not sure of where I'm going. What direction am I going? A little old black man like me, little black young kid, a biology major, excited, Donna, got exposed to biology, got excited about research. Now, could I find a black researcher at NIHS? No.
No.
There were black PhDs at North Carolina Central University, certainly. But now you want to know, you're saying, can I excel in this environment myself? Could I become a PhD or a vet or something? I mean, is there something for me in this? And I'm looking around, and then I'm not thinking now. See, I'm not really aware of how small the number of blacks were in veterinary medicine.
Yes.
I'm not even exposed yet, Donna, to Tuskegee University. I'm not even exposed to the university that sent so many black people into veterinary medicine. I'm not even aware of that. The first mentor I had was Dr. John McLaughlin. He took me under his wings. He was the first true person to sort of take me under my wing and said, this little young black fella, he didn't have to do it, but this little young black man has something special. Maybe I couldn't even see it, but evidently he saw that you needed to do more. And so then being in the right places, you said. So along with this mentorship, Donna, there comes resources that were available for me. Affirmative action.
Yes.
Affirmative action was there. Now that's something that today, Donna, for people of color, especially for blacks in this thing we call diversity today, that has dried up. Yet there's a lot more money out there in terms of diversity, but that part of money that helped young black people at my time to get into vet school and to get into PhD programs in the early 80s up to about 95, Donna, until the political landscape changed. A lot of people were helped by that resource.
So we met at Harvard Medical School. They had a biomedical science careers program.
It was actually a physics teacher in Connecticut College that informed me about that program. And the first year that I attended, I met Dr. Gaskin. And the second year, I met Joe Scott.
Yes.
And through that program, what I used to do, because there was such a limited amount of veterinarians in that program, that I literally would go through the entire directory of all the people that attended and sort out every single veterinarian program.
And that was what I was excited about, is when I met you, and I remember saying, okay, you can come work at MGH, right? We had that conversation.
You definitely opened up my eyes to the lab animal world that I did not know existed. And if it wasn't for that and my struggles to get into vet school, I would have never been, had all the skills that I had now going into vet school, and even going into the residency program. That a lot of my residency mates didn't have the experience that I had, all because I had all this experience prior to vet school by working at MGH for several years.
So you had that first leadership experience of being a team lead in a really challenging area.
Yes.
Talk about your years at MGH a little bit, and just how that helped you to be in the associate director at Rockefeller.
I feel like, I have like three things on me, right? I look young, I'm a woman, and then I'm also Latina. So it is hard at times to overcome. I do find myself to just sort of like having to sometimes push a little bit more than maybe the average person needs to push to get things done. But for me, I feel like I've been living like this all my life. So it's not, it's one of these you learn.
Yes.
I started off as an intern, a summer intern, and working in each of the facilities in the vivariums at MGH, and then slowly got animal tech position at Edward 6, the old 6.
Yes, it's still there.
Historically, that was a challenge because there were employees there that were challenging to work with, I would say.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
And there were a lot of difficult characters on that team. I would say I worked hard, and I sort of was able to get then a position as a team lead on that floor. And interesting enough, by the end of my stay there, I was able to get probably one of the toughest employees or toughest character that gave me a hard time walking in that place. She actually cried when I left, which was something that touched me, because she was difficult to get along with. But definitely, I think getting that management experience was definitely a plus. It actually allowed me to get the assistant director position here at Rockefeller University. The other great thing about that position, I wasn't only husbandry tasks, because I was in there cleaning pens and bathing pigs and things like that, and changing monkey cages, everything. But I also was helping out doing parasitology, like helping out the technicians with dosing animals, collecting blood samples,
Right.
intubate, helping with the surgical core, because everyone knew there that my ultimate goal was to get into vet school. So the great thing about that team is that everybody from the scientists to the staff were always very open to help me get as much hands-on experience as possible. And that was also a great thing for me and for my application to vet school as well.
And
Yes.
so then you applied we cast the net wide. We put
Yes.
that story in your application, cast the net wide, and I think it was over 10 schools maybe you applied to.
And by the end of it, I was accepted to 7 schools.
And of course, one of the schools was my alma mater, which I was very excited about. And we're really telling you there's a great, strong mentoring program at NC State that will be there to support you. I connected you with the diversity officer there, Dr. Alan Kennedy, them. And you said to me, Donna, I want to go to Cornell.
After I finished Cornell, I applied to lab animal medicine residency, and I was accepted to the tri-institutional training program, which is a collaboration between Memorial Sloan Kettering, Weill Cornell, and Rockefeller University. And it's a 3-year program. And once I finished that 3-year program, I was then hired full-time at Rockefeller.
The Army had a preceptorship program. They still do, I think. No one in the U.S. Army that had taken the certifying exam up to that point had failed. So I had another schoolmate who was in the Army. He was 2 years ahead of me, Theophilus Peace, 63, class of 63. He had gone to Stanford for his 2 years of laboratory animal training. And he had a master's also from Stanford University. So the two of us was assigned to Edgewood so that we could participate in the preceptorship program until we were eligible to take the boards. There was some reluctance for the people there to invest too much in us, because when I say that, there was a little information provided, but we had to pretty much study and get information on our own. That is, Theophilus Peace, myself, and another Tuskegee graduate who ended up getting boarded later, Jerry Goldsboro. But we all had to study together. We studied at night, studied on the weekends. I think they felt if they invested too much and we did not pass the boards, they would somehow be blamed. So they kind of stayed a distance, which we found quite odd, but was not did not deter us. And we put a lot of work in. In July of 1971, 1972, Ted Peace and I took the exam together. a week or so, maybe 2 weeks, we got a letter saying we had passed. And of course, that was historic. We were the first African Americans to pass the board in Aclam.
I had 2 failed attempts at passing the boards first. And then I found out that within the clinics, the residents who were studying for boards, they were routinely given time off, paid time off, to study for boards. And they were given so much time each semester just to dedicate to studying boards. But that was not offered to me. No one ever said anything like that to me. So
Yeah.
when I went to, I'm not sure, I think Jerry Goldsberry and Nate Jackson, they reached out to me and said, Gwen, we're having a workshop. Because back then, I have heard stories about the contributions of certain groups to the boards and exams and access to questions and how questions were recycled and things. They don't do that anymore now.
Right.
But and so some people were privy to information that helped them pass boards. I wasn't. But Jerry and Nate, they say, they knew there are a lot of minority students who were, interested in going to lab-bound medicine and getting certified, and they wanted to offer something to them. So they said they had access to this these slide sets at Walter Reed, and if we wanted to, they sent it to several. There were about 5 or 6 of us. They sent the invitation to. Said, if you all can get off time, come. We will have this weekend. We will go over these slide sets.
Yes.
And we can make up some mock exam questions for you to test you. Are you here to give you a sense of what you need to, how you need to be prepared? Yeah. And so that was great. Their wives cooked meals for all of us. And we studied, we had mock exams at their homes. We'd go to Walter Reed and go through the slide sets during the day, but then they had us at their house. And so that was fantastic. It was good to know you have these people who care about you. Yes. And they want you to succeed. Yeah. They're opening up their lives and their homes to bring you in, to give you, to help you. If they thought you were struggling, they and I respect them so much. And was greatly indebted to them for their hospitality and they're bringing me into the fold.
So boards were not easy either. So it took me 2 trials before I passed. The first time around was during the period that, the pass rate went from 50 something to, it dropped to like 30%.
Yes.
I was one of the 70% that did not pass, but then the following year, I, went at it again and was able to pass the boards, and that was finally in 2015.
And now your support system doing boards, how did that work? Family, what kind of support did you have to, solicit?
Yeah, so that luckily I had no children at the time.
Right, yes.
So that made it a little bit easier. I did have to inform my family that I was going to be sort of a hermit during, the entire 2 years. And they understood because they kind of were used to already me sort of studying hard all the time. With my work, my job was actually very great about being lenient with me taking time off. Good. So they were able to give me a month off, and I took mornings off. So a couple of hours every day during the mornings I found to be the best for me to study. So I would take 2 hours every morning, 5 days a week to be able to study.
What made you leave Maryland and take on Mass General Hospital? I mean, you were the first to set that program up, and today it's 132 strong, just so you
Wow,
know.
wow,
Yeah.
wow, that's a lot. I
Yeah.
think there were about 8 or 10 when I went there. When I retired from the military, when I retired from the public health service, I had actually interviewed for a job at the USDA in the animal welfare division. I forget the individual's name who was there at the time, but he was heading that animal welfare group. And I was kind of going to be his successor. So we were in negotiations. I had been selected and offered the position. So we were in this process of negotiating a salary. Okay. He came down and I applied and he came down and we interviewed the person that I was working with who was heading the division. So, Bill, what you need to do is get an offer and show it to them so that they can see, what the situation is. So I applied for a couple of civilian positions as kind of backup. One of the positions was an opening at Mass General Hospital. And the person who was the vice president at that time was MD that had retired from NIH, Lamont Havers. He came down and I applied and he came down and we interviewed. And I expected nothing to happen of it, of course. About a week or so later, I get a call saying we'd like for you to come up to Boston for an interview. So I went up and bottom line is they made me a job offer. So I really chose to go to Mass General the month after I retired from the public health service.
I worked for Merck. I was there for about 5 years. One day, Lynn Anderson called me and says, Gwen, I just had a headhunter call looking for someone to fill up his shoe up in Skokie, outside Chicago. I think you would be great for that position. And I said, Lynn, thank you, Lynn. I'll look into it. But then I was in the middle of taking a long distance finance course, business finance course. And so I didn't think I was really ready to go and take on that. But I talked with Jerry. He says, Gwen, you never wait till you think you're ready. When the opportunity knocks, you go and you try to seek it out. I was reading about where this position was. I said, Skokie, as I recall, there was something about KKK there many years ago.
Yes.
Jerry says, don't let that deter you.
There you go.
It's a great opportunity. Don't let that deter you. Go check it out. So I went, and I was amazed at the cultural diversity at Sir G.D. Searle. It was amazing. And I accepted the position, went there.
I'm working at the Rockefeller University, and I'm currently the associate director here in this program. Vivarium is medium size. We have like 16,000 mouse cages, about 80 or so primates, 10,000 zebrafish, and 400 rats or so, and a couple of other exotic animals that we get from time to time, like chinchillas, gerbils, hamsters, pigeons, chickens sometimes. I started here 7 years ago, but I started as the assistant director and been in this position for about close to 4 years now.
So you're really at your mid-career, kind of keeping the balance of advancing up the career ladder and
Yes.
Taking on more and more responsibility.
Absolutely.
I took the members of our college that I mentored, and they have a young lady right over at NC State right now. She's in lab animal medicine. She contacted me, and even now she got those mentors even at NC State, over at Duke and over at Carolina. But I exposed her to every one of my students in the college, and I told her they all in all kind of avenues of life. Talk to them about what they're doing in their careers. I'm sure you're going to find where you want to belong in the American College of Lab Animal Medicine. It's a cup running over, because I cannot tell you how blessed I've been in science and in working with animals. It's been a tremendous ride.
I think that one of the reasons we decided to get involved in trying to get more students of color involved in laboratory animal medicine is that it would, I mean, you remember the college was founded, what, in 57? Here we're talking about 72 for the first person of color being board certified. But after that, I think that after we introduced people to it, and I think they introduced other people, and I think that Gwen, for example, went to the University of Georgia. Believe it or not, she's from North Carolina.
Yes.
And but yeah, Gwen was pretty much alone once she finished, and so we took her on our wing, and we actually worked with her because she got interested in laboratory animal medicine. You hear a lot about the affirmative action program. I firmly believe that without that, I would not have had many of these opportunities that I had during my career. And in order to even for affirmative action to work, somebody have to give you an opportunity. So I look at people like my mentors and Steve and Pakes and Bill Webster, and of course Bob Whitney gave me an opportunity to come to NIH to
Where I met you. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
right, and and of course one of the things I try to do at NIH is make sure that individuals of color had a chance to take advantage of the programs.
I always saw you as a pipeline builder, for sure. Absolutely.
Well, that was one of my commitments to build a pipeline. In fact, when I left NIH, I had mentored my successor, Nathaniel Jackson, who took over as chief of the small animal section when I retired.
You've touched so many people, mentors, mentees like myself along the way. And, what has that experience been like, kind of seeing yourself with, there's a lot of us now, kind of in the college and in the profession, and
Well,
and you've promoted women moving and being a voice. Like I'll say equally that it was time for the women to have a voice at the table.
when I worked for Merck, I was there for about 5 years, and that was it was a great experience. It's that one of my mentors here is Lynn Anderson. She was at our Rahway, New Jersey site.
Yes.
And Mike Costello was the high-ranking veterinarian, and I report to Hilton Klein at our West Point site. And so they all were supportive.
Yep.
And developing and giving me feedback about if there's any areas where I needed to get more enhancements in or opportunities. They would recommend me to serve on certain committees, within the college or
support
other organizations to get in. And so that was great. And then one day, I've been here about 5 years, and I was coordinating our postdoc. We had a postdoc program with Penn State where we would fund positions in lab animal there. And we would bring the students into our West Point site for a rotation with us as well. And so I helped coordinate that with Rosemary. And so that was a good experience. But I had a very diverse technical. The technicians were from many different backgrounds, which is good.
So today you're very much a supporter, an advisor in One Health. And I talk a lot with, I think I was sharing with you, or if I haven't, I will, that I had a couple of students that I worked with through the Harvard Medical School Biomedical Sciences Careers Program. That supports a lot of underrepresented minorities in medicine and veterinary medicine. And there are just so many young people who want to bridge this gap and be a part of One Health. In fact, I had a recent young lady talk about going to veterinary school and medical school. I think a friend of mine who's also part of the mentoring had this student who wanted to do both just to really appreciate One Health. So where do you see that? Why are you committed to it, and what do you hope for it? Where do you see us going with One Health?
How do you prepare yourself for a career in One
Yes.
Health?
Okay.
And some of the key things they talk about is to have excellent communication skills. That is key. And being able to look at the broad spectrum and come to agreements with people up front, who's going to do what and how it's all going to mesh in order to get to the goal that you are jointly working on.
Mhm.
That is the most important things, having excellent communication skills
Mhm.
and being able to see the broad picture.
I was asked to write a journal article about mentoring, and I did, and I put it in there. What I called it cake mentoring. You know, first of all, you got to be caring. You got to be caring. If you're not caring, people see it. People will see it so fast. Done.
Amen.
A student, a person will see it real fast. Now you know how that is. You take your car into the car dealership. You want them to know who you are every time. You want them to
Yes.
know what your car is. You want them to know about your car. You want them to know you, right?
Yes.
Look at how it is now when you take your car in. Every time you go in there, it's a different person. Nobody
Yes.
knows you. Nobody knows your car, and you done took your car there for 11 years. Now, next
Yes.
you got a person who's got to be accessible. You got to be available.
Accessible. Yes. Available.
If you're not
Yes.
available, you can't be. Now, Dr. McLaughlin was there for me. He was there all the time. And I'll talk about a few more, Dr. Webb. I got a bunch of them for you, but these people were available. I could reach out and I could touch them.
Yes.
So even today, Donna, when I finished up at A&T, I went back to serve as chairman for just about a year until COVID hit us. My freshmen, I had them, and the first thing I would have them do is come up and touch me. I said, just touch this. I said, because when you touch me, you touch Dr. Alfreda Webb, you touch George Washington Carver, you go all the way back. And now you have got the same kind of acknowledgement and credibility right here. So we talked about the caring, and then we talked about being available. Now
Yes.
the knowledge part, Donna.
Okay.
The knowledge part makes them feel confident that they can
Love
succeed.
that. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. Let's step back and say that again. I'm
Okay.
sorry. It just resonated with me.
Yes.
These kids need to feel confident.
Confidence, Donna. That's all they need, Donna.
Confident.
That's
And
all they
you're
need.
like, they get that when you invest in their knowledge.
And then, Donna, my experience is last piece of that cake. And my experience allowed them to go out into the doors of the world because I had the connections, the kinds of things that I knew that they would need to experience if they're going to go to veterinary school, if they're going to go to PhD programs, if they're going to go to work. You've got to have somebody who understands the experience. What am I going to see when I get out there? How is that experience going to be different than the experience I had at what they have inside the classroom or inside the, just inside the work environment?
Now that I am a mentor to some people now, so I always tell my mentees that you should always, just even though people are shy, because I was shy and I would consider myself shy at times, like you still kind of have to come out of your comfort zone to ask for things, because if you're not going to ask for things, no one's going to give anything to you. And I pretty much learned that, growing up in New York City, in Brooklyn, that no one's going to give you anything for free. If you want something, you have to go out and go get it and ask for things.
How else can we improve from what your perspective is to support our memberships in diversity, equity, inclusion in general?
There are a lot of qualified people of color in the college, and they need to use their talents. They need to do more of that. everybody it should be a rainbow in
Yes.
the leadership,
Yes.
because you have a lot of qualified people of all hues and colors. So that would be one thing that they need to probably expand on and continue. I see things going in that direction, but it could easily drop off the cliff if we're not vigilant.
Intentionality, Donna, to get resources to do it. You know, will your dean do it? I always told Dean Lund he could do anything he wanted to. He wouldn't believe me half the time. I said, if you want to do it, I said, you got to wake up in the morning. You got to drink this stuff, man. You got to drink this every day. I gave him a cup, Donna, with everything on it. Every kind of definition of diversity, I gave him a cup. I said, now you got to drink from this cup every day.
Take a global view and see what's best, what's going on. So I say, go out into the world with an open heart and open mind, and you'll be so amazed at the blessings that you will receive. That's something I've learned. So there are a lot of people out there, and people from Thailand and other places, So in Singapore, going and doing site visits at various places, I have opportunity to do that. So that's, those are things to know that there is so much you don't know, and to go out and to explore the world and see. And then makes your life so much richer.
Something about our sort of group that I do feel like our group is everyone is very welcoming and very open to speaking and getting to know each other. I mean, the downside now is because we do have a pandemic and we can't get together, which sort of, those gatherings really do help to network. And I feel like our field is very good with sharing of ideas and wanting to help each other out. And I which I think is very unique to our team.
Yes.
And I think anyone that's, going into this field, I think should really look closely at becoming, or wanting to become a lab animal veterinarian, to be a part of this field, because I do feel, we are much like a family. We sort of treat each other as a family.